Yes, guys, welcome back to episode 22 of the Cannon Podcast. Obviously, today I'm joined by just Alex himself. No George, unfortunately, but Alex and me will do, hopefully. The combination is here. And more importantly, we've got to break down a lot of things today from Arsenal, Spurs, to maybe Ivan Toney, an injury crisis, what's happening to the attack, and obviously Brentford as well. But starting off specifically with that game against Spurs, 2-2 at the Emirates Stadium. I wasn't at the game. I think Alex, I said George. Alex watched it at home on the TV. I don't know if you rewatched the game since then, but I think the real question from that game is, what do we actually learn? You know, because a lot of fans were disappointed. They're seeing it as a defeat. Spurs fans are seeing it as their moment. You know, they've won a game at the Emirates, even though they didn't quite win the game, but they won the game. So, Alex, what do you think of the game? What are your initial thoughts out of it? How are you feeling, you know, after that 2-2 draw?
Well, mate, sorry. It was thank you. It was obviously disappointing. I think my main takeaway was around, I haven't seen our build-up be so disrupted in a long time. And that's my main takeaway and my main feeling of regret, really, is that we didn't change it. I thought Spurs did really well in terms of I think their PPDA was down at like 6, but so was ours. But what they managed to do was disrupt our build-up. It was forcing us long through David Raya. We were playing up to Eddie Nketiah, and I don't blame either Raya or Nketiah. Nketiah's not right to receive long balls, and I don't think Raya should have been playing Nketiah long balls. For me, I think it's one of those things. I had this analogy of, like, if you're a teacher, like say you're a governing board of a school, right, and all of your teachers are underperforming. Yes, okay, you could go into each one of your teachers and say, oh, you're not doing this quite right, or you're not doing this quite right. But at some point you say, well, okay, if all of them are underperforming, there must be something structural that we can look at. And I think that is an example of, an allegory of what's going on with Mikel. Like, I felt as though he didn't change it quick enough. I felt as though we either needed something in terms of Havertz going up top and taking Eddie off, needs to change our build-up structure because we basically kept it almost the same. I think Ødegaard was trying to drop a little bit deeper, but then again, you suck your options further down the pitch. So, trying to get a sponsorship. But I just felt as though that was our main issue, was being disrupted so much by Spurs. And then it creates a problem, sort of a ripple effect up the pitch. We didn't create enough big chances. I think on the Jorginho thing, I've seen people talk about it, and it's a shame and it's a mistake. But I also think, like, errors are a massive part of football. They're a massive part. I saw a good tweet this morning from Gunnerblog, who said, essentially, you know, a lot of analysis of this isn't taking into account that our most experienced player fell over his own feet, and that's basically why we lost the game, drew the game. Feels like a loss. And I do buy that to some degree, but I also think errors are a massive part of football. They're a massive part. An error is what won us what got us our first goal. So we shouldn't be playing on such a knife edge that one error means that we drop 2 points. I think we should be focusing on creating enough chances, creating enough moments, having enough dominance, so that when things do inevitably go wrong, we're not on such a knife edge. And so, for me, the main issue was the press. We Arsenaled last season ourselves in the way that Spurs got us really high and then forced us long, which is what we were doing to teams all last season.
And I think my real concern from this game was a lot of fans talking about the attack. Jesus, Nketiah. I think it was Gary Neville on commentary was the one saying what we learnt from this game was Arsenal needed a number 9. And I think it's not as simple as that. And as much as fans think a number 9 is a solution, and we'll talk about that with Ivan Toney, for example, I think our bigger problem at the moment is creating big opportunities.
Yep.
We're not decisive enough in the final third. Talk about Gabriel Jesus missing that chance in the first half, or Nketiah's chance that he missed, which I don't think was easy, by the way. You compare that to Erling Haaland. People talk about Haaland being this one chance, one goal. He's not. He's not that, I'll tell you that for a fact. Haaland misses a lot of chances. Yep. I think there was a few games ago in the Champions League where he missed like 5 big chances. That's a lot of chances. But what City do so well is he'll miss a chance, they'll make him another one, and he'll eventually score. So with Gabriel Jesus, I think it's a matter of, he's not clinical. I won't say he's a devastating striker, but if you give him more opportunities, he will score. You can't give him one chance all game, and if he misses that goes right, we need a more clinical striker. Ultimately, I think the problem here is our system is too sometimes structured going forwards, or it's not decisive enough in the final third, and we wait too long to throw the ball into the box. I see it often, we don't make enough runs in behind. The only player that does that sometimes is Fabio Vieira. You compare that to Man City. You look at that first goal. Who did they play this weekend? The first goal, I think it was a running behind from Kyle Walker. Who did City play this weekend? I'm confused now. I'm so focused on Arsenal at this point. But a lovely running behind from Kyle Walker. And that type of run that Arsenal don't make enough. And we need to make more of those going forwards. I think that's my real concern so far this season is we've got so much territorial advantage in the final third. We're getting the ball. The field tilt is in our favour. But how much are we making it count? Because how can we be one of the best teams in the league in terms of getting the ball into the final third, but in terms of open play expected as a XG, Arsenal at 11th.
Yep.
And I think in terms of big chances created, 15th. And it's not as simple as that, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a concern, and I think that concern comes from the fact that we aren't being as decisive as we can be in the final third, and it goes back to the fact that I don't think we really have one primary creator. You look at City, obviously not right now, no De Bruyne, but they don't normally have Kevin De Bruyne to turn to. He'll get the most big chances for those guys. You look at obviously Man United have got Bruno Fernandes. Arsenal, we think it's Odegaard, but Odegaard isn't as creative as I think fans think he is, because they see Odegaard, they see the O, they think it's Ozil. He's nothing like Mesut Ozil. He's a creative player, but he's not our primary creator. And I think there's a space there for a new creative hub. And I think the player that strikes to me that can play that final pass consistently is Fabio Vieira. But again, he's playing on the left-hand side, and I don't think the angles suit him as much on that side. So I think that's my real concern, is creating chances. But Alex, what do you think is the solution there? What do you think? Is there an obvious solution? Is there some tactical changes Mikel can make? Because I am more concerned about that chance creation. And even in this game, we made chances, but there was more that we could have made with the amount of ball we have in the final third. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, just briefly to go back to that big chances created thing. Yeah, we're just above Bournemouth and we're just below Wolves. On 7 big chances created. And what's interesting is you see these stats, and then people's immediate response is, "Well, big chances created isn't a really good metric." It's like, okay. Well, when metrics are going for us, we don't mind them. But when they're going against us, we try and pick them apart. The fact is, whether you believe in the stats or not, we're not creating enough big chances by the eye test or by the stats. So I think that is the issue. And then in terms of a fix, that is a very hard thing to say. I mean, for me, in that game, it was about the build-up structure, and we were getting forced long, and that was an issue in that game. So I don't think there's anything. But I haven't seen that before, which is why I don't say that that's a consistent issue. That was the first time I've seen that happen to us this season. Beforehand, it's been lacking the ability to access the central areas, which has stopped us creating big chances. In other times, it's been our wingers being doubled up upon. So I don't think it's necessarily one thing that's stopping us creating those big chances. But we have to find a way of doing it. And I don't know. Look, we all love Mikel, and we all think he's not all, most love Mikel and think he's a very good manager, right? But I think sometimes he is a little bit slow to react in games. There's been a number of times this season where I've gone, there's an obvious error, there's an obvious mistake going on here, or there's an obvious thing that's not working. And I'm not sat here saying my answer is correct. What I'm sat here saying is you've done nothing to change it. I'm not, so for example, the Gabby Jesus substitution, right? I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. In my opinion, it was wrong. Well, actually, I am saying that. In my opinion, it was wrong. But I'm willing for you to show me, as a fan, what you think is the actual mistake, because you're way more informed than me. What I'm not willing to do is wait for 70, 80 minutes of a game for it to happen. Do you know what I mean? I felt as though the issue was there a lot earlier, and he persisted with Nketiah until almost the moment was gone. I also think there's another thing as well, and this isn't, that's a tactical thing that's got to be fixed, but there's another thing in terms of players who, when the game is on a knife edge, when a game is like this, and it's kind of 50-50, it could go either way. For Spurs, that player over the last few years, if Harry Kane plays in that derby, they win 3-2. Because it was on a knife edge and he would just create a moment. Erling Haaland has that quality. Kevin De Bruyne has that quality. Mo Salah has that quality. Who is our player in our team that when a game is on the edge and we're not playing that well, which there will be points during the season when that happens, who is our player that can step forward, step up, and create that moment? Is it Saka? Probably the closest, and is developing that quality, but we don't have that banker, no-brainer. This is one that's never failed. We don't have that player. So yeah, that's a market problem. And then you've also got to try and put people in positions where they can do that. And I think Saka has the capacity to. I think Martinelli maybe could in the future have the capacity to. But again, it's that fine margins player we just don't have, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. What I was going to say in terms of fine margins and that player, maybe, we talk about Saka. Let's talk about Martin Odegaard because, he's got a lot of criticism after that performance. A lot of people thinking, Odegaard's washed now, get him out of the team, his time is over. But what do we think is wrong with Odegaard in that game specifically? I'm not saying Odegaard now because he was fantastic against PSV and everyone was hyping him up. So I can't say his overhaul has been bad. I still think he's our top goal scorer in the league as well, or joint at least. So in terms of Odegaard's performance against Spurs, what do you think went wrong? And on that right-hand side, there are calls from certain fans to say maybe it's time that we change it up to help Saka get more centrally. And it's Odegaard maximising Saka's profile. So is there something that you believe Odegaard can offer or needs to offer? And if not, is there another player in the team that you think, okay, bring him into the team instead and maybe move Odegaard over to the left-hand side? What do you think is the solution on that side?
Yeah. Well, specifically on Odegaard's performance, if you look at his heat map, he actually spends most of his time beyond Saka. If you look at like his like highest percentage of position of where he is on the heat map, it's right at the byline. It's not in the half space. So he got pushed out of there. And you could argue that's by Bissouma, or you could argue that's by Pape Matar. You could look at the game in a number of different ways. But ultimately, the numbers and the stats tell you that Odegaard is not in the best position to do his best work. We know Odegaard is best in that right half space, right? So that's problem number one. Problem number two, as we've spoken about before, is that his most effective position? Now, of course, you could argue, well, you look at his performances last year. Yeah, it is. But again, we've spoken about before on this podcast, right, with George, like, he's the only player who's never been tried for any extended period of time in a different position. Can he, in some areas of a game, step forward a little bit and allow Jesus out of the hole? I'm not saying play Odegaard at number 9. I'm saying push him into certain zones to confuse the opposition and create space in other areas. Can he swap positions? It feels like Odegaard is the one sort of centrifugal player who everyone has to go around. And I wonder if, while our attack is aiming to be as fluid as it possibly can, why can't Odegaard be someone who can change roles, can float outside, can go into other areas? Because as we can see from the heat maps, the answer to that would be because he's so good in the right half space. Okay, but he's not there. So if he's not there and he can't access it, then what? And I understand that maybe you believe that is the only position Odegaard can thrive in. If that's your position, you may be watching this thinking that's the only position he can play. Fine. But right now, look at the numbers. That's not where he's playing. So what do we do? And the solutions are, I think honestly, I think Ange had I know we joke about him, but he had a really good performance against us. He managed to, especially, and Bissouma and Pape Matar. I thought obviously James Maddison played really well, and Son. Again, these are those guys who are kind of on the edge players, right? Who can create that situation, get themselves over a line that maybe they not necessarily should. Odegaard, when he's fit and firing and in the best zones for him, he has the potential to be that player, but right now he isn't. And we spoke about it on last week's podcast. I don't think you were there for. He in many ways, I want to see Odegaard there's an authority to Declan Rice, right? In the way he plays. There's an authority and everyone could see that. It's almost undefinable. Just in his actions, in the authority of his actions, in the way he snaps into things, in the speed, in the to put it plainly, in the aura of what he does. And Odegaard, I think, still feels a little bit like he's got the coach in his mind. He's still there with Arteta there saying, well, don't make that pass because that's going to happen. And I think Odegaard is a wonderfully talented and intelligent footballer. But I wonder sometimes, mate, just try the Hollywood ball. I know Arteta is probably saying don't do that, but you've got the technical capacity to do it. Like, you have the ability to do it. You have the ability to change a game. And we need to see that more often from you. And I know he's going to be someone say, well, I need to drop into this space to create that space for that player, whatever. Yeah, fine. But sometimes games are won in, well, not even sometimes, all the time, games are won in moments. And I want him to create those moments. And
yeah, I agree. I think he's a player that, very simply put, needs to express himself more often. I think that's what it is. He's a player who's got all the talent, all the ability. And I think in terms of creativity, he can take more responsibility. I don't think we throw the ball, and it sounds very simple again, but we don't throw the ball often enough into the box until the box is completely packed up and then we throw it in there, and then it gets cleared. You know, you watch other teams play, I think, and this is one thing Arsenal haven't done well under Arteta, to be fair, in general, is we haven't been as decisive as we can be going forwards. They never maximise our forward potential. That's why even last year under Arteta, our big chances created numbers weren't as high as Liverpool or City, because we don't do that enough. And I think that's where we need to either find the right players for it, or get these players in the right scenarios for it as well. Sounds very simple, but, you know, Mikel is the guy, and I believe he'll sort it out. But I can see why fans are worried. Yeah. I also have to say, like, listen, calm down. We are September, and we've got a lot of players injured. This team will get better. And, you know, we talk about squad depth and stuff like that. And there's a question going about it. Have Arsenal improved their squad depth? I think the answer is obviously yes. Because the fact that we're able to win 4 games out of 6 without Thomas Partey, without Jesus for the first few games, or Zinchenko, without the likes of Trossard and Martinelli, or Yuri and Timber, and still get the job done most parts of the game. Even yesterday against Spurs, you know, we made enough chances to win that game. Mm-hmm. We could have easily won that game if we'd just taken the chances in the first half. So again, I think our depth's definitely improved. We've just been a bit unlucky with injuries. And, you know, we see how Mikel finds the right balance now, and, you know, how these players return. I saw all the news now of Partey returning, Rice being available for City, Trossard back, Martinelli back. Things can change with one performance, one result. I think fans want more performances right now than results, because results right now aren't that bad. Aren't that bad at all. But, you know, there's rumours going around, even though the window's closed, about Ivan Toney. So let's talk about Ivan Toney then, huh? Toney to Arsenal, price tag, we're talking, 50, 60 million pounds? We're not even sure about the price tag yet. I think he's out of contract in 2025. He's now 27 years of age, and of course last year, 20 league goals stands out straight away. Mm-hmm. Everyone sees 20 league goals and goes, okay, look, he's the answer. Tony's the one. But, you know, I think 6 came from penalties, so you have to be cautious of that. They get a lot of penalties and Toney takes them. And I think, you know, in terms of where he plays for Brentford, I'm actually looking at his heat map right now, a lot of his numbers come on the left-hand side, obviously as a number 9, but he moves a lot to the left-hand side as well. Is that suited to what Arsenal need? You know, how will that maximise Saka and Odegaard? What do you make of Ivan Toney to Arsenal? Is he a player? Because look, the rumours are legit. Everyone keeps saying is if Fabrizio Romano, it's the team losing ticks, that Arsenal have interest. And they've spoken to his camp, and that Toney wants to move as well. So it's doable. I would say it's affordable. But, you know, if Toney was to be our number 9, because that's how it would work, is if we sign Toney, he'll be the number 9. No Osimhen or no Evan Ferguson. I don't think we'll sign a player after that. So would you be happy with that Ivan Toney in January?
Thanks for checking out the Cannon Podcast. To hear the full episode, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel, or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod.